Howdy, y'all. Howdy, y'all. Wow, we've got a lot of stuff already happening. What do we got here? I gotta go back to the chat room. Hey, Stuffy. Streaming's going well so far this morning. So far, so good. There's that. How are you doing this morning? Hey, Brent. Good morning, my friend. And until we're done with Naked McCats, of course we can't have Naked McCats. So, how are you guys doing? Yep. I like what autocorrect decided to do with that. That's pretty funny, actually. Name McKeats. Name McKeats. I think that's pretty awesome. I mean, of course, naturally, I know exactly what you were trying to say, but still, it cracks me up. So, no, I think I made a mistake. Oh, that's even cooler. So, how are you doing this morning? I will return to showing the main screen here in just a second. We have a couple of things we've got to do. Just moved over to YouTube. Yep, there's nothing as intolerable, apparently, as Naked McCats. Did you know that? Bet you didn't know that. YouTube, or not YouTube, Facebook really likes to block that. So I've got to make sure I am clear of all things that show Naked McCats until I am done with all of these things. which will only be a few seconds longer. So yesterday, I went searching for a buddy of mine. I didn't find her, but it was interesting. I'm actually fascinated with how effectively she has dropped off the planet, which actually is not fascinating as it is probably sad. And the odds are good. The reason she has dropped off the planet has everything to do with the fact that she may no longer be on this earth. She was not doing so well in high school. And I mean, like, her choices of who she hung out with and stuff like that. So I'm very concerned and worried about her. And one could say, why are you concerned and worried about somebody now? I'm not. I've been worried about her off and on for years and years and years and years. I lost touch with her in 92 or 93 and haven't heard from her since. So it's really kind of worry that has been in the back of my head, and a friend of mine sort of sparked it again by asking a question about her in post on Facebook, and I realized I had really heard from her. Every 4 or 5 years or so, I check in on her and go and run a series of searches. But the truth is, she was a 90s woman, and sometimes they get married, and then that's the end of the trail. It doesn't go any further than that, That's all you get. So, because once they get married, they're just another individual, another person by that same name. It's kind of sad because you can only search for them by their first name, and that's like, I'm also having a fascinating discussion with some friends of mine who are on the political right. Good morning, Donald. And we're having an interesting discussion about what constitutes facts. I find that fascinating. And I think there's a lot of thought process going in my head about the concept of what facts are and how facts are procured. All right. How are you doing this morning, Donald? Doctor's appointments. I feel that. Feel that in my soul. Oh, man. So you're in an army of doctor's appointments. A flock. A herd. What would we call doctor's appointments? What are they registered as? A murder? A murder. Doctor's appointments. Ooh, all the way out there. Oh, you're going out to the big building. I know where you're going. The pride and joy, that whole new big building. They're all very proud of that. The best part about drawing a cat is that if you draw it wrong, you just add fur. He's got George's nose, though. I should probably fix that. That's one interesting thing about George is that he's got a very Greek nose for a cat. It's very flat right here. It just goes straight down to his nose, you know, like straight down. I'm going to have to decide what his markings look like at some point here. That's part of what today's job is. Decide what his markings are. Wow. There's only 39 beds? That thing's like a hospital ship that they just stuck in the middle of Denver. I like George too, except when he's a pest, but yeah. What can you do? He's a pest. Tons of medical offices. Yeah. I would assume that you've got your fMRI and stuff like that too. So I would assume that there's a lot of things going on there that that's cool. Good luck. Drive safely, my friend. Drive safely. You'll just end up listening to our music. No idea whether anybody else will show up. Nobody showed up for a while. Yeah, well, yeah, but legitimately, the odds of us getting bombed here are kind of slim. And it's one of those things where you have to weigh, is it better to have everybody depressed and safe from bombs? Or is it better to have everybody healthy and risk the really rare chance of getting bombed? And that's actually something that kind of worries me about our sort of scare happy world today where we're all terrified about everything as people are actually taking action to prevent things that never happened. And in doing so, they're actually making life worse for people. And that I have a problem with. Oh, you're heading to try to take somebody out. That's kind of cool. I mean, don't do it, John. No, do it. It's fun. Like, I'm gonna close his eyes like he's all happy and blissful with me, Pa. This maquette's that's what I mean with that worries me, man. I mean, you can see under that logic, getting rid of all art, getting rid of all pleasant places, getting rid of every park, and living in concrete boxes just in case. I mean, you can see it heading there. That's everybody always talks about Soviet brutalism as a response to communism, but it wasn't. Artists are not paid in communism, nor are they paid in capitalism. That was a choice. And the choice that they made was to bunker up in case we nuked them. And so if you look at anything in the Eastern Bloc, all of the Eastern Bloc was dark and utilitarian and rough. And it's because they knew they were going to get nuked by us. We were going to nuke them at any second, which we never did. And I'm not saying that the military hospital should be more secure or shouldn't be more secure. I agree. It's a military hospital. But one of the big complaints that people have about the VA is that it's cold and unfeeling. And I don't think that making your building bulletproof improves that any. You know what I mean? I mean, like I feel like that would still, people would be like, wow, that is the most cold and unfeeling building ever. But on the flip side, they're serving people who literally were in war zones. So maybe those people would be better served. You may be right. You may have a point there. You didn't make that point. I made that point for you. But it's still, I think maybe that's a valid counter argument. You know, it's makes sense. You guys were in the military. Security was your thing. That's what you were doing. So maybe it makes sense to make it a little bit more secure. Maybe onto something there, my friend. I worry about our health as a people, spending so much time soaking in fear. So much time soaking in fear. And it worries me greatly, you know? I have Toby here. Legitimately. I had to study brutalism in college. It's fascinating the way the art world sees brutalism, the way politics sees brutalism. The art world sees it in a very different light. Oh boy, this cat is not the world's best, is it? Yep. And in general, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you in general on that one. I think we should be. I mean, it's not just shelters and, it's not just man's whatnots. Having water reserves would be really useful in case of a natural disaster. I mean, that's not even harmful. In the case of, anything happening. I think that's a great idea all the way across the board. I don't have any problem with that logic at all. But when you're talking about a hospital, you are talking about considering people's mental health. And so you want to think about whether you want to have windows so that bright sunlight comes in, because sunlight actually is good for your mental health. But that was what I was saying before. That's my counter argument. However, it doesn't help you any if you're going to be nervous because you're ex-military and that's what you were trained to do, was to watch for this kind of thing. And if it's making you nervous, then that didn't help you any, did it? It's not good for your mental health. So I think that you have a solid point in your favor. Your counter argument has a very solid counterpoint. I agree. I am not getting started this morning. Oh boy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Counter argument is, if it was a normal hospital, I might say, the risk isn't worth the reward. But as a military hospital, you know what I mean? Not be worth it, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that sounds good, actually. Eggplant parmesan. Good stuff. May not have been what I was after. That's what it was after. All right. Next Wednesday, I get to go to Oregon. Whether I like it or not. Mm-hmm. I follow that. You lost sound. Can you hear me now? I feel like the Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? In Scottish. It's a Scottish Verizon commercial. Apparently. Who knew? All right. We have cats. We've got crab legs. See, galley. We've got crab legs. Dee, 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 dee. No, thanks, Brent. You're driving. You don't need to respond. The skittish version. Can you hear me? Oh God! I think I've been killed. The skittish Verizon. All right. It occurs to me that I need to go downstairs real quick and grab my Surface and charge it. Hello, Merrick. Because if I don't charge my Surface, I'm going to end up with it dead this evening. So I'll put that on the to-do list here in a few minutes. So skittish Scottish on the call. There we go. I should be able to, in theory, Go around everybody but that cat in the bottom. Who's got a leak somewhere. Right there. Kind of shocked. That's the only leaks we've developed so far. Just gonna say it. Hello, Optic Sphinx. Good to see you. Getting coffee on the way. That sounds like a great idea, actually. There we go. And now we have random cat. Certainly very random. So I cannot believe it. My mom used to work for the Nuggets a long time ago. And I remember her talking about them never making it to the playoffs. Championships. Kind of things. But I'm impressed. Good job, them. Go them. Hey, George. You know how unrare a black cat is versus how rare a white cat is? At least for a white DSH. We don't run into those very often. Do you know that? The thing. I just didn't know if you knew that. Because I'm actually legitimately trying to figure out whether I should just make him a domestic short hair and leave him white. What do you think? Should I leave him as a white domestic short hair? Is something I should do? Something I should do? You guys have a shortage of cat butt in your life. George wishes to rectify the shortage of cat butt in your life. Enjoy wishes to do that. That's what George wants to do. Check my email. Okay. Hi, Ron. I will switch to main viewer so you guys can look at George anyway, because I don't like to open my email on air. And then I will open mine. He's like, that's not an important, good thing, is it now? There we go. Oh, there we go. There we go. What do we got? Ooh, we can order copies. Take a look. Oh, yeah. Yeah, look at that, guys. Look at that. It's got all of the markings on it and everything, guys. You can order this from Amazon now. Thanks, Ron. Apparently, George wants to say thank you too, but he's a cat. George knows. George knows. Tormund is a orange flame color, right? Orange and white. Oh, thank you, Ron. I really appreciate that. I really, really do. That's just lovely. That's lovely. Especially since I kind of struggled over this one. I was like, I don't know. And so it was difficult. And so I appreciate hearing that you like this one. So I really appreciate that. There we go. There. George agrees. George always agrees. Yeah. And now that I've had a day or two to look at this cover actually is rather good. It's solid. It's a solid piece. I had just gotten to the point where I'd been working on it too much, I guess. Oh, I hope so. I hope so. She did a good book. There's a good book behind this cover, guys. We'll be heading into the third one later on this year. So, alrighty. Well, there we go, guys. That's us. We've got that one out the door. He's like, you have not given me enough scritches to justify not paying attention to me. Just love the fact that cover work works. I also feel like the first book was a greenish blue and the second book is an orangish red. So I'm going to have to think of a different color combination for the third book so that they all look harmonious. You too. Have a good day, Ron. Oh, side note, if you're still with me, Ron, just so you know, I am leaving for Oregon to visit the in-laws next week, Wednesday. So I'm going to end up missing the the June meeting, but I'll be back for the July meeting. Right, the July meeting. Could you refuse? Thank you, sir. I'll be back shortly. There we go. See, I just need you to stop being that much of a floof. Could draw him like George. See, that's a cat. I could draw him like you. Make him like Tormund. If I made him black, it'd be hard to draw. On top of not enough cat butt, George thinks you have not enough cat nose either. All right. Good cat. What have you been into, by the way? Okay, but you know that I have to get back to work, right? You know this. Somewhere along the line, work must be done. Yes, I get that. And headbutts. I understand that too. All right. Yeah, probably. Do you want water? Is that what you're after? Or just riches? You know, you have like a lot of water, right? You know that, right? You're acting like a classic cat. You're doing the, you can't work, you must scritch me. All right. There are things that I oft wonder. Like, I'm looking at my cat here and I'm thinking, we humans are specially designed with eyes that you can detect where they're looking. That's specifically designed by us. We're the only primate that has whites in our eyes. And we're one of the rare animals in the animal kingdom that has whites in our eyes. And dark eyes are the default mode for humans, with light eyes being actually a genetic aberration. But either way, we're designed to tell where our eyes are looking. Probably a lot of combat and war was set up that way when trying to get the mammoth, you know, kind of thing. Being able to steer with our eyes. But I look at like George here, and George also has eyes that I can determine where they're looking. Right? I can see where that is. Well, that's probably because humans are designed to tell where eyes look. But there have been times where I have been looking one way and George looks the same way, which makes me wonder, is he programmed to tell where eyes are? These things make me wonder. Probably not. All right, George. I'll put you down. All right. Now he's got fur all over here. So thinking about that, then my next question is, what is why would I do that? Because I'm a doofus, I guess. Yeah, that's probably what it is. Oh, that's why. You guessed poorly. There we go. Let's fix that little problem. Like, what little problem? Here I've got a non-rasterized version of the line, or a rasterized version of the line art. Here's the line art in vector. And here's what should be just the silhouettes, right? And the reason is because we'll bring in the silhouettes and I'll put in a line around the outside edge that's black to give just some highline shape, just a 1 pixel highline shape around the outside edge of the cat. so that whenever it's sitting on here, it's clear, right? We did the same thing with Alex last night. So we've got the same thing going now. I have to kill my cat. Where did you go? Where are you? What are you knocking over and where? Well, but still leaving it this way allows me to go in to the adjust line width function on it. And we can hit the adjust line width on the visible layer. And once I figure out where my stylus went, I can go through and just tap, right? Tap a couple of these areas here. And give me a little more line width. Like so. And this just gives life to the lines. Especially in spots where there might actually be a thicker run coming through there, like so. That. There we go. It's giving him some life. That's awesome. Captain Grogu. Captain Mandalore. I'm going to go back here, and what we need to do is go into Momentary Ghosts and pick up issue 2, bring it in, so we can figure out where the heck we called that cat. Which was introduced in issue 3. Hello? Wow. They're aggressive. I think I wrote it down. I'm pretty sure I wrote it down. Max. That's what he's called. He's called Max. called Max, and I've closed everything. There we go, Max. There we go. See you later. Have fun, Donald. As much as you can possibly have while dealing with that. Do not envy you, my friend. Drive safely. All right. There we go. Max is an artificial intelligence pre-war class AI. That means that Max's setup and rig is as it was before the war. So he's not going to respond or act the way that a modern AI would, because he still believes that he's pre-war. So his moral standing and everything like that is going to be pre-war. But Max is Alex's faithful companion. He's an AI, but he has some unique limitations. He can't be seen by anyone else unless somebody decides to birth him, which would be through the process of creating a new AI. He's also not privy to Alex's thoughts, though it's clear he's coming from her head somewhere. And he has no in-space rating. So we will all presume that he will go to sleep when Alex goes to sleep, and her in-space rating is 3.25. So for a pilot, she's actually not that hot. Hey, some user. And thank you. This is Alex's cat that Alex has been talking to in the comic. His name is Max. And I'm going to design him today. Today is his designing day. So we'll have to design his camouflage. TM patent applied for. He's got his camouflage mode. And then he's got his actual mode. And that's here and here. And the reason is because in his standard mode, he actually looks like he belongs to the AI functions that he's called for. So let's start talking about that. Pepper. Hello. Some user, Max is an AI, which in Bellatrix Rising, the AIs are another life form. They're not necessarily robots, although they can take control of robots, but generally they show up as a hologram. How you doing, Pepper?
Finding it very funny. Me and Bill were just talking. We had to do an inclusion training yesterday for our adoption process. The inclusion training sounded like any type of inclusion training that you would get in a work environment. My only gripe about this entire class was it never actually incorporated how we be inclusive with children.
So it's just you being inclusive.
So we mainly only talked about how we include other people into our life, not how do we make sure that these kids feel included from their cultural and heritage background at all.
That is fascinating.
And then on top of that, at one point in the class, Excuse me. I'm still having a reaction to the smoke.
Yep.
I mentioned I have an autism diagnosis, and I have two nephews with autism. And I said one of my nephews and me are silent, are invisible disabled.
Yep.
Like basically, we don't see, people don't see our disability.
Right.
And so, hey Brent, and some user, I'm sorry, I did say hello if you didn't hear me earlier. Yeah. Excuse me. And so the moderator of the course said a comment like, I don't think you should really say that autism is an invisible disability. And I was like, I said me and she's like, you know, because she followed it up before I responded, going, there's the hand flapping and blah, blah, blah. And I said, me and my nephew do not have those signs of autism in order for people to see.
Right, that's the whole point.
And she's like, oh, not all autistic people have physical signs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, ADD is also a silent disorder.
And
all of our social miscues and things like that, people do not actually understand. They think that they think we're just being stupid.
Well, ADHD also does have some physical signs too.
It does.
Not everyone has them. Just like not everyone has them in autistic.
Right.
So, yeah. So, I don't know. It was just very weird. It was a very, very weird class because we're being told by the state of Colorado that this class is mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
And the teacher, who, by the way, is the one that created the course, did not discuss how to include children in taking care of children.
Right.
Literally, the whole entire course was about how to interact with other human beings inclusively. And I found a very big problem with that.
Yep.
So it goes back to when I was in one of my master's classes. We were talking about different things for social sustainability, and inclusion is one of those things where people talk a lot about including to make sure that you are being socially responsible and sustainable in communities. And then my thought process in this is when we're world building for comics and stuff like that, how are we thinking to include? But a lot of people that I know, such as yourself and others like us, who have been writing stories since we were very young, we naturally just make characters
that are inclusive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is very odd because most of the people that I know that are not spectrum, ADHD, ADD, whatever you want to call it, neurodivergent, when they make characters, they're not broad.
Right.
They're not. I don't want to say they're not inclusive, because they can be inclusive when they need to be, but they're very poignant.
Yeah.
And one-dimensional sometimes to start.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you and me and all of the people I know who are on some neurodivergence, we all didn't start out with understanding all the social laws. We had to learn them like you'd read a book.
Yeah.
And so we picked up real early that there's a problem between people with skin color. Okay, I get that. And then there's a problem with these people because of skin color too. Mm-hmm. And maybe we have a problem with people because of gender, but we were learning it from an outsider's position.
Yeah.
By default, which I think is one of the reasons why, as the number of neurodivergents start growing in our society, we're getting a lot more people who are pushing back against racism, sexism, all the isms.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are coming and going, this is stupid. You know what I mean? Like, because we didn't learn it intrinsically like the neurotypicals did. We had to learn it like you read a book.
Yeah.
And so from an outsider's point of view, we're all like, wait a minute, this all looks stupid. Why would you do this? You know, and it makes it easier for us to just say, oh, like, for example, I just kept adding the same kind of character to my stories over and over and over, and it started to irritate me. So I made a random character generator that just randomizes personality and all the traits. That way it stops bugging me to feel like because it feels very flat whenever I do it by whatever default setting comes out of my brain. With the exception of the fact that I tend to be female heavy on all my stories, but that's the flag I'm carrying. And that has been the flag that I have carried forever.
I think that's also going back to the fact that you're a Ghibli fan.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't realize this, but Hayao Miyazaki is actually, for a Japanese man,
very much
a feminist.
Yeah.
He did not, honestly, looking at his history of hiring, he hires more women than most other known animators in Japan.
It's true.
And he also had several assistants over the years that went on to be very good career-wise in animation that were all female.
Yeah.
And his own daughter works for Ghibli.
Yep.
And he shut his son down.
Poor Goro. Aw, poor
because
Goro.
Of his comments towards women.
Right?
Like,
I taught you better than that.
Yeah, he came back. He came out of retirement after Goro basically made the worst comment ever that you can do in animation about women.
Well, he also made the worst Ghibli flick ever.
Yeah, that's
Earthsea, sadly, is Goro's baby.
Yeah.
Which is sad, because Earthsea could have been better.
Well, he also chose a very part of the Earthsea saga that had a lot of details. That
he drew the wrong set of cards. You're right, but he also did not make very good out of it.
He also tried to change the model of Ghibli.
Yes.
That's the other reason why I didn't do as well. Yeah, Poppy Hill is another one that didn't really hit the mark either.
Yeah. Speaking of Mark and Ghibli, last night I found in an obscure corner of the internets I found Chage and Asuka's On Your Mark, which was a Ghibli animated music video from 1995. And I had a copy of it, but it was 320 by 200. So playing it on any monitor, it was just pixels. And you could get a gist of what was going on, but it wasn't that good. And last night, I found a very pretty, high quality version of it and managed to get it. And it's now on my machine. Because that's such a pretty video. Speaking of, because you odd, which means that you have seen it and you know what I'm talking about.
I know which one you're talking about because that's one of the ones my computer animation friends in college were like obsessed with anything animated in music video.
Yeah.
So there were several that they had me watch, and there are several Ghibli films that just don't quite hit well to certain American audiences. Poppy Hill is a good movie. It's just not the best Ghibli thing I've seen.
Yeah, actually, the Up on Poppy Hill is fine. You do have to have some concept of the culture that you're dealing with, but yeah, it's fine. No, we're talking about Tales from Earthsea, which was Goro's animation and it came out while we were in Japan. So 2007 or 2000.
That was also his first film too.
Yeah, 2007 or 2008, I would think, was when it came out. Because I remember going and seeing it in Japan in the theaters when it was released. It was a big deal, and I watched it, and my wife watched it too, and we both were like, "Did we miss something here?" You know what I mean? Like, we all felt like,
Yeah, someone actually did a deep dive on it. And,
yeah, well, and of course, our first thought was we must have missed something because we watched this in Japanese. So then we rented it and turned on the English subtitles and still went, did we miss something?
So basically what it was someone did a deep dive on the breakdown on it. And they literally said the reason Goro was trying to do the normal hero's journey.
Yep.
Which, if you watch any Ghibli film, yes, they have a hero's journey, but it is not the traditional hero's journey.
Right.
It is all over the place. It does not, specifically follow step by step.
Right. Also, some user, I don't know what it would have been dubbed into your language, but it's called Gero Senki in Japanese. So, I mean, I only know the Japanese title and the English title. I know that they get dubbed into other things, but it's Ursula K. Le Guin's Earthsea series. And he got permission to write her stories. And so Gero Senki is God's Chronicle or God's Chronicle. So I don't know. I can't. They're horrible. Don't blame you. I tend to like to watch movies in the language that they were in. Like, we've been recently watching a whole bunch of German films, and we've been watching them in German, even though nobody speaks German. But I prefer to watch them in the so we just watch them with the English subtitles, and that's fine. So for me, I have a hard time, especially when NDK brings in English guests, the English dub guests. I don't know who these people are. Haha, this is so-and-so who played X character in Ranma. And I'm like, that's not the people who played those characters in Ranma,
Yeah.
Yes, you did. You did tell me that. And you've done an amazing job. Like, I'm really pleased. And nothing wrong with that. I just personally, it's a personal pet peeve of mine. It's not everybody. You're welcome. Alrighty. Anyway. Ghetto Senki is the name of the piece in Japan. I'm getting connection issues. Like, some of my connections are dropping, apparently. I'm doing fine so far, I guess. Right? Oh, you just now discovered that I opened the door, huh? Make it easier for you. And George is like, "Oh, you opened the door. Good job, George." Actually, some user, it's people, it's your story that kind of makes me go, "Why didn't I get better at Japanese?" Because I keep thinking about that and going, a lot of people are picking up English from dubbed anime or dubbed whatever, and I'm sitting there going, I did not, in fact, pick up Japanese from the dubs or from the subs. Maybe it's because I was working on the subs and not working on the language. Who knows?
Actually, most of the people I met in college, at the international college I went to in Miami, most people actually watched English-speaking shows, either from BBC programming or American television.
Yes, and you're right, some user. There's a link through the German side on Swedish and English. It's kind of a wild link, but it is a link. Whereas there's no link between Japanese and English. The common language between Japanese and English is so far in the past that there's not really a lot of commonality. But Swedish and English both shared a common ancestor in recent writing memory. So the evolution of those languages, all the Nordic languages branched off from the Germanic languages at some point in time before modern German. But German then evolved into English, because English isn't really a language. It's three languages in a trench coat pretending to be a language. So,
Well, you have Gaul, which later became French in German, and Luxembourgian.
Yep.
And then, Smorgasbord and Eisenberg. Yep.
Yeah, the English in London at the time, when the Romans were in charge, just after the Romans were in charge, the people who were there, the upper class was French, and the military class was German, which is where English comes from, is that mix of French and German plus the residing language that was there before. I keep wanting to say Cruenth, but it's not. It's another language. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, that's why some words, fish, sheep, those words don't have plurals, but other words, cat, dog, have plurals, because it depends on where they borrowed them from.
Isn't anything from the island doesn't have an S at the end?
Yeah.
And everything from off island has an S at the end?
Yeah. So, like, they had fish and they had sheep.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, water. in reality, it's not waters. You can't say waters. That's not a word that exists, except in the in a very different meaning. It has a completely different meaning. But water is not plural either. So some of the basic things are very much borrowed from that proto language that was there. The one that turned ultimately into Gaelic. It evolved over to Gaelic at some point, but this was before Gaelic, so it didn't. There was no, this was the proto Gaelic. But yeah, that was that was the thing, was that the military was Germanic, and so a lot of our military words, and because it was soldiers, a lot of our cruder words are generally German, or German related. But then
you find colonel is pronounced colonel and not
colonial. Yeah, right. Or lieutenant, which is not lieutenant. Right, like you've got all of these weird combinations of words, but then of course all the upper class words are all French, which is why upper class words are spelled differently, and that's where you get things like whether you use an ES or an S between two words and things like that. All of those are whether we borrow the rules from the French side or borrow the rules from the German side. Which is why I always say English isn't a real language. It's three languages in a trench coat pretending to be a language, because it really is. It's those three languages just all mixed together. And you need to know that this word is a French derivative, so it's spelled this way, and this word's a German derivative, so it's spelled that way. And then it doesn't help any that a lot of those words were spelled like C-O-L-O-U-R, and then America chopped those. So we got rid of the OU vowels and dumped them. So then you have now UK Queen's English and American English, which are two different spellings. So we've just really gone off into the woods.
Well, and then there's Australian English too.
Yeah.
Which is it's not like
not the same.
Or American.
Right. So my stepmom helped kids with reading disabilities, and one of the things she says that I absolutely love about that particular suffix is the E at the end makes the letter say its name. So you have with the exception, of course, of have, but it's salve, S-A-V, but then when you put the E on there, then the A says A, so it becomes save. Have is from the derivative of French, so that rule does not apply. And that's back to the same thing. That silent E is Germanic in nature, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. The silent E is French. The French in nature, but have comes from Germanic, so the have doesn't follow that rule.
Yeah. Because I was about to say, because most French words you do not pronounce the last letter.
Right.
Most. There's exceptions.
But have and give.
Yeah.
Have and give are basic core words, so they came from the Germanic side.
Yeah.
Which is why it doesn't follow the rule. So the thing I have said is, generally speaking, the simpler the concept, the more likely it came from our German side. The more complex the concept, the more likely it came from the French side. So save, you don't need to save stuff if you're just living on the plane and all you have to do is kill people. So that's not one that came from the the Germanic side, we pulled that in because usually you save money. And money and all of that stuff would have been on the French side. But have and give me your spear. I have your spear. You know, that's pretty basic. So you'd find that on the Germanic side. So it's not foolproof, but it helps. You know what I mean? It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
It's not solid because it's really hard to understand English all the way around. That's why it's always funny when people do English becomes the universal language. And I'm like, yeah, I can think of about 12 languages that would be far easier for everybody to learn than English. Japanese is a spoken language is really easy. The written language on Japanese is brutal.
I love what one person said about ADHD and dyslexic people who have both. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of funny because they were like, if you're dyslexic and you have ADHD, picking up other languages is truly an easy thing. Because your brain is naturally wired to go back to a language that you're not speaking.
Yep. Some user, anything with an N is negative or not. So either left or right, or neither left or right.
Actually, I think he has... Yeah, neither.
Yeah. Okay. So that's anything with an N is negative. You don't. So would you like to choose these two objects? You can choose A or B. And you can say, well, I'm okay with either A or B. Or you can say, I like neither A or B. Don't double negative, though. You can't say I don't like neither, because that's a double negative, and that turns it into a positive. As an English teacher, that's important to me. I'm like a big pet peeve of mine. And people who use the wrong to. Oh my gosh. T-O instead of T-O-O.
I have a huge problem with that. T-O, I get how to use it.
Right.
But there are times where I use it properly, and even my grammar check will go off. And I'm like, I'm not talking about more than one subject. I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about this.
I don't.
And it's not ending a sentence in an explanation. How am I using T-O improperly? And it will automatically force me to use T-O-O.
Well, it's because to is a direction. I'm going to work. I'm going to the store.
Yeah.
T-O-O is as well, or also. Yeah. I would like to go to the store too.
Yeah, but that's T-O-O.
Right.
Most of the time, when I say to, I don't necessarily mean also.
Well, you're probably just ending. The reason why your grammar checker is going off is because if you use to at the end of a sentence, then you're leaving a dangling participle. You can't do that. You have to, by the rules of English, you have to give an adjective or a noun. You have to put a noun there. Hang on real quick. I would like to address some user. I don't like either would work fine. And by the way, either and either are two different pronunciations, and there is actually a rule between them that's very fine, but it's the same thing as the and the, which are two different but very close words. So don't worry about that. You can say either and you can say either. Both work. If you're like snooty, really snooty, then you can learn the distinction between the two, but that's one of those things where I would say easily 90% or 95% of the population of both the UK and the US, they don't know the difference between those two. So I wouldn't worry about it. So you can say, I don't, now you've negated it, like either, and that's okay. Or you can say, I like neither, and you've negated it. So both will work, but you can't say I don't like neither because that's a double negative. There's two negatives in that.
Yeah, I also want to point out about something about either and neither. There are people who who don't like the words at all, just like people don't like the word moist.
Moist.
I have a huge problem with privacy. Is pronounced in British English. English is
privacy.
Yep. And I was taught privacy.
Right.
And I was told by a British person that I'm mispronouncing it. It's privacy. And I basically said, no, it's privacy.
No, that's accent. It's neither one of those are incorrect.
Yeah. And they're like,
there, I said neither.
Yeah. And and the thing is with neither and either.
Neither one are incorrect.
Who, if you grew up in the South, you pronounced it neither.
Right. But that's an accent change, not an actual dialect change. So privacy versus privacy, or for that matter, aluminum versus aluminium, are just it's the same word. It means the same thing. But in British English, aluminium actually is spelled like that. Like there's extra letters in it.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because we Americans actually will come across that word and it's just a jumbled mess of letters. And you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. What are we talking about? And you know, the answer, of course, is that, you know, the stuff we make drink cans out of. And I'm like, aluminum? Yes, aluminum. So it depends on which side you come in.
Okay, so this is actually something that trips up a lot of Americans, too.
Yes.
Detail and detail. Okay, again, this is an accent.
It's an accent.
This is an accent thing. Because I was in eastern side of the United States. The further you go up is on how well that D is going to be pronounced.
With a TH.
Mm-hmm.
But if you talk about standard, it's detail with a D. And the emphasis should be on the second syllable in classic American. But UK pronounces it with the emphasis on the first syllable, detail, instead of detail. They'll go detail. So the emphasis is on the first syllable, and in American English, it tends to be on the second syllable. Yeah. Either one of those will work for you. So we are kind of in this fine line between where you differentiate American English versus Australian English versus UK English, which, by the way, when you get an Aussie and an American and a Brit in a room together, we just laugh about all of this stuff. So we get a kick out of the fact that nobody's pronouncing anything right in the room, you know, because all of us are pronouncing it all wrong.
And then you add the Scottish and the Irish.
Yeah, you add the Scottish and the Irish, and you get all kinds of wonderful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be realistic though. Like the further up along the east coast of the United States, the emphasis of the D part kind of subsides.
Yeah. I actually said it wrong. I said it reversed. The UK is detail, and that's the emphasis on the second syllable. And the United States is detail, which puts the emphasis on the first syllable.
Yeah. And the Canadians. Yeah. We can't forget about the Canadians.
So what's interesting about the Canadian accent is it actually drops down quite a ways into the US. So that accent moves down through Montana, Idaho, and into some of the Midwest states. Not into Colorado, but definitely.
Oh, it does. There are some people in Colorado.
There will always be some people that do everything, but our accent is a flat A. That's the signification of a Coloradan accent, is the ah in Colorado. That's how you can tell you're native to this zone, is that flat A. Because so many people will pronounce the state Colorado like that, with that tall A, but that's not the way Coloradans pronounce it. We pronounce it Colorado with that flat A, and that's the way you can tell our accent.
It's kind of like when I'm originally from Florida,
right?
And so when I pronounce Wyoming,
right,
naturally it's Wyoming.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Florida thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not. That's just on how we learned how to say it.
Sure.
When I was
New Orleans.
Cool. Yeah.
New Orleans, which I learned in Texas to pronounce it, is New Orleans. That's not the way they pronounce it in New Orleans, right? But in Texas, they were squishing the two words together to make it New Orleans. So it's like Norle. You know what I mean? Like New Orleans. Like it's one word.
Yeah, and it's going back to different pronunciations of where the word originates from.
Right.
Because the term, so in Colorado Springs, there's a road that is called Bijou.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the spelling of that word, that is not a Spanish spelling.
Right.
It is a French spelling.
There's definitely French trappers in there.
Right. So that word would not be...
Hang on. Hello?
On the phone with Guy.
It's the kids' school. That's why I had to stop you, was because I don't usually get a call in the middle of the day from the school. Turns out it's the kid, whom I think has forgotten his cell phone, but he's decided now he wants a yearbook. He didn't want a yearbook. I asked him if he wanted a yearbook. He said no, he didn't want a yearbook. Now he wants a yearbook.
Because everyone's probably signing one.
Right. So now he wants a yearbook, and he needs $35, or right this second, right now, leave house now. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no, wait a minute. I asked you if you wanted a yearbook, and you said no. And now you're saying you want a yearbook, you know. That kid, I swear. Sometimes he's just like, did you think this through? Are you getting an echo, by the way, on desktop audio?
Not me, no. Are you getting an echo from my side?
No. Yesterday I was recording that On Your Mark, and I use OBS to record these things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a special scene for it. And one of the weird glitches of OBS that bothers me a whole lot is whatever your audio settings are, that's your audio settings for every scene in the entire thing. It will always be that way. So if you turn off the volume on the desktop audio, so that the desktop audio is not captured by OBS in one scene, all of the scenes it's turned off.
Mm-hmm.
So last night I had the scene where I made one of these cut scenes, which cuts to just the desktop, and sure as the world, the desktop audio is on there. I'm like, why would you do that? Let's see if I can fix that. Yeah, there's nothing I can do either. It has to always be running, and that's the thing. Anyway, so I hope, some user, that was informative and interesting for you. Nope. That's not what I wanted. Now my cat looks like something straight out of Cat's comic. You are welcome. The most important thing I wish for you to take away from all of this, some user, is we all disagree on these pronunciations. So don't worry about it. Don't stress over whether you should say detail or detail. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about aluminium versus aluminum. None of that's going to be a problem ever with us. We are already used to British scrambling up English and the Australians scrambling up English. And so we're far past the point of worrying about that. So yes, the only thing you need to remember is in English, the letter N is usually used as a negative, to negate, to take away. So if we say this or this, and we put the N in front of or, we end up with this nor this. And if you use that, that means you can have neither of them, right? So you use neither because you don't get them. These two apples, do you want these two apples? You cannot have them because the N is there. So nor, you can neither have that. You can have neither this nor this, which is important because we use the N to negate the or as well. Even though I just said don't use a double negative, obviously there's an exception to every rule in English, I swear. And that's
if you use it, the one thing that I think we haven't said, if you use two negatives, it becomes a positive.
Right, but neither and nor must be used together.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say you can have neither this or this. You have to say you can have neither this nor this. If you use either, you cannot have either this or this. The or must match the neither, the either. Either or, neither nor. So that's all you need. But you're right. Nobody's going to. In fact, most English users understand that English is just a jumbled mess. And so we're more than willing to give you lots of grace because you're trying. You know what I mean? Like, we're all like, nope, that's still a mess. We understand. So I wouldn't stress it unless you're trying to teach an English class. Then stress it. But yeah, if you're not teaching English, don't worry. George has decided to sit right in front of the screen door because he thinks that's cool. Screen doors are awesome, says George. George is totally into screen doors. as long as he doesn't climb it. Although I got this cat-proof screen mesh and replaced the screen with it. He's tried to beat it up, hasn't succeeded yet. I'm actually pretty impressed because he is he's Tom-sized now. I mean, he's not a small cat.
Yeah.
He's grown into his full size. He's now an adult cat, and he still can't get through it. I see one. No. You didn't even get there. Look at that. Absolutely. And I will tell you now, the only if there was any kind of thing that I could pick on you, if you were in my class, the only thing I think that you miss is punctuation and capitalization. And that's usually not something we hold people to on the internet. We just hold them to that when they're writing papers. So you're doing fine. Nothing else about your word order is all correct. Everything about your word order is correct. I'm sorry. Everything about your word order is correct. Your sentence structure is correct. You even have complicated sentences. So I wouldn't worry about it. You're doing just fine. There's nothing to pick on. But I'll pick on you if I see it. I will definitely tell you. But if you hadn't said that you weren't a native speaker, I would not have picked up on it. Your English is fine. You're welcome.
I'm confused.
I wonder about modern day. I keep thinking about stuff about modern day. Like, it's getting to the point where somebody could technically log into our show and watch this subtitled, because right now I know that YouTube is automatically subtitling my show. You could watch it subtitled with Google Translate on, translating it into your language, and use Google Translate to write a response into English. You know? And though it would be kind of garbly and it would be kind of weird, the truth of the matter is you and I would be able to figure it out. I've used Google Translate on Russian before, and it comes across pretty clear. Chinese, it still gets all gumbled up, and Japanese, it's still having a problem with, because I actually read the original Japanese and go, yeah, that's not what they were trying to say.
Well, I also read something, speaking of Japanese, I read something today. I came across something that I thought you would find kind of hilarious. So Duolingo is offering Japanese language, English, like for English speakers, to say and learn on how to speak Japanese from your favorite animes.
Yeah.
And
that's dangerous.
And in my mind, I'm like, but that's not real Japanese. Like, that was my first thought. I was like, because they're boasting Crunchyroll is, I guess, doing a thing.
Partnering up with them?
Partnering with them, yeah.
I mean, I guess, they are speaking. I mean, it's not like they're speaking a different language. They're just really colloquial.
Yeah.
And you don't want to walk into Japan saying, ikinakya, like that. Like, that's super colloquial.
Yeah.
And the worst part about it is stuff like ikinakya is definitely an example of a word that's a large concept that's colloquialized down. the nakya is short for nakereba narimasen, which means we have to, right? So iki nakya means we have to go. And it makes sense, but the actual construct on that is ikenakereba narimasen, which is we must go, you know. But it's kind of like learning, gotta go. You know what I mean? Like, if that was the way I taught you English, then you wouldn't understand it whenever somebody comes up and says, we must go, right? Because that's gotta go in our colloquial English can mean so many different things. You know, gotta go, or, ooh, I gotta go, you know, it's like, you can't quite, it's got a lot of nuance that isn't easily picked up. So it's not like Japanese, the Japanese you're learning in anime is wrong per se. It's just really well, and that's the other thing. If you're talking about Meiji Restoration Japanese, that is brutally different.
Yeah.
Really different. And so it sounds like these and thous, you know, to us.
The funny thing is when I was in college and then one of my Japanese friends, I tried my hand because I was learning Japanese at the time. I gave up a long time ago. Writing and reading it for me was very difficult. And I basically was like, could you just check and make sure that I have this all spelled, like, done correctly? And Mayako was like, sure. And she was like, I can tell that an American wrote it.
Yeah, yes.
And I was like, why? And she's like, you put everything backwards.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, what do you mean? She's like, you need to do it this way. You say it this way. But I was like, but I was writing it on how I was instructed. And she's like, no, opposite.
Not only that, English has to declare a subject.
Yeah.
Whereas Japanese does not. And that is one of the things that's very difficult to comprehend in learning Japanese. Japanese will say...
And it's more... I found it more prevalent in the reading and the writing than it is speaking.
No, it's very prevalent in speaking too. Watashi wa nantoka nantoka nantoka.
When I was trying to learn it,
yeah,
the reading and the writing part of the aspects of it were harder for me to pick up than it was for like trying to say longer than short sentences.
Right. Well, and that's part of what I'm trying to say is because they don't speak in the same pattern,
right,
that the rest of us do. So in English, we would say, yesterday I went to the store. Mm-hmm. I then bought a 6-pack of beer. Then I went home and drank the beer. Each time I'm saying I, right? In Japanese, that same sentence would say, yesterday, I went to the store, bought 6-pack of beer, returned, drank beer.
Yeah.
And, like, all the subjects are dropped. And so in English, we keep wanting to come back and say I again, or give some kind of bearing of where everything is. And that's not something they say in Japanese. They don't. And when you do speak like that, they immediately peg you as an American. Or at least an English speaker.
The other thing was, she's like, you also wrote in way too much kanji.
Right.
And I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you're not, because she was very familiar with Sailor Moon.
Uh-huh.
She was like, yeah, you're not Usagi to, you can't get away with that. The character from that series,
uh-huh,
she only use the basically the basic alphabet. You never use complex things.
The line between hiragana, katakana, and kanji.
Yeah.
That's all that does. That doesn't actually tell a reader that you're an American. That tells a reader that you're in first grade, because they don't start picking up kanji until first grade. And when they do, they start picking up the first 10 or first 30 kanji thereabouts. So you pick up things like day and, Japan and, key important ones, water, things like that. And then you replace the two hiragana characters for water, mizu, with the kanji for mizu.
So basically what I would do is I would have like these really complex characters, what I was writing out, and then I would go into the very simple dialect.
Yeah.
And that's when she basically was like, yeah, that's not written that way.
Yeah, no, we don't do that. Yeah.
Because I basically essentially started spelling people's names out.
Oh, yeah, you don't do that.
Yeah.
When people teach you their name, they teach you the kanji.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. It's actually something I'm going to have to teach my kiddo, so that when we go to Japan and people ask him his name, he actually has a name that's kanji. So he can write the kanji, and it works. So usually that's what happens with people. It is rare for people to have one kanji in their name. Usually they have two, but they've already taught you how to write it. So even in first grade, second grade, depends on how complicated your name is. By the time they got to junior high with me, all of their names were written in kanji, and there was nobody that was written in not kanji, and except for the 3 special ed kids who were very lovely, but they were in special ed, so they couldn't quite grasp all the kanji. So their names were still written in hiragana. But they did what they call furigana. I don't know if you're familiar with furigana.
Isn't that the one it's more complex, but it's not basic?
No. So furigana is when you have something like this, right? Right, there's the kanji, right? And then above it, we'll write mizu.
Yeah, no.
This is called
furigana. I started getting into that, but then I stopped because I was like, this is too much.
Right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now, yeah.
So the answer to your question, some user, is this. When you have the ideograms coming from Chinese, that's what these are. These are Chinese ideograms. It means water in both Japanese and Chinese. So this character still means the same thing in both languages. The benefit behind having ideograms, which is what this is that it alerts the user at a glance as to what something is. So you can tell really quickly the situation. And as I had said before, Japanese don't use they don't repeat the subject. And the reason they don't repeat the subject is because a lot of the Japanese words have markers to the end of them to indicate what they are. So you'll end up with, like, for example, if you were talking about a person, it'd be hito, right? Which this character means person. So you're saying one person, and it reads just fine. Both of these are kanji. If I were to write that out, right, hito, it still means the same thing. But now I don't need a subject because I've got a marker that I can easily see we're talking about people, right? So we're talking about people here, and we don't need to worry about it. And so all of that is straightforward.
Well, it is also 11:15.
It is. It's 11:15. Time for lunch. I am hungry.
So I will talk to you later, sir.
I'm going to see you later, some user. Thank you for joining me today. And I love having this whole discussion with you. I guess my nutshell answer to that real quickly is just, it is a necessity. I don't think they need one of the alphabets, but they definitely use the ideographic alphabet to their advantage. So,
yeah.
And they actually have 4 alphabets because they use ours too. So they use the standard U.S. alphabet system too. So they've
they use the 26-letter alphabet.
Yep. So you have to know all 4 of them because a lot of things are written in both languages. So cool. Yep. See you later, Brent. See you later, some user. Thank you for joining. And we will see you all later. I'll be on tonight. And as always, keep your eyes on the stars. Goodbye.